Amanda Ryle says, my emotions play a big part in the successes and failures of my making. Have you had a build go wrong because you weren't in the right headspace? How do you manage that? Yeah. Okay, so I said at the beginning of this that I'm in this always a bridesmaid, never a bride situation with my costumes. It has this long tail effect for me of feeling like I'm not finishing anything in here because I'm not taking it out into the world and realizing its final potential for the Iron Man suit or one of the other costumes that I'm working on right now. And that is actually making me feel a little like I'm languishing in here. And the practical result is that the endorphin rush I get from finishing stuff has been diminished significantly. And I think it's over the arc of this last year. I really do think it's COVID and the fact that I'm working in here alone almost all the time. And I am not having the same avenues of sort of exaltation and demonstration that I usually do at the end of my projects. And that is it is a part of my process. But I noticed that like my joy in being in this space is just the volume on my joy is lower. And that's depressing. It's a little depressing. My emotions, Amanda, also play a big part in my perceived success and failure of my own projects. What I try and do is exactly what I've been talking about thus far. Is I try and recognize that it's a process, that my emotions can exist in the space and I don't have to respond to them. I can, here's what I have learned after 40 years of making stuff for a living. I can break a milling bit on this mill. I can be really, really mad at myself and the world at the fact that this screw up has taken me more time and I got to redo this thing. And I can feel all those feelings. And I can still, in the midst of that emotional turmoil, walk over to my machining end mill, my end mills by 64th drawer, and pick up another one and bring it back over and take out the old one, toss it out, put this back in, and just perform the actions. I don't feel them. I don't feel good, but I don't necessarily have to feel good in order to proceed. Yeah, I mean, these are weird things, these minds of ours, these minds and bodies. This coupling of sentience with intelligence and emotion is a bizarre mix. It is totally fascinating to me. Our sentience is absolutely the weirdest miracle I can point to in the world that I know about. And the emotions don't have to be attached to the physical actions. They just don't. And for me, that was liberating. Not to say that I succeed all the time, because I don't. I fail because of overloaded emotional content to something all the time. That's real. That's being a person. I don't think I'm unique in that way by any stretch of the imagination. All right, let me move on to page 2. We're doing great. I really appreciate the emotional content in these questions. C2 Lawson says, do you ever hesitate to start a project due to a fear of failure? I am guilty of doing this, even though I realize I will never learn or get better if I don't try. Yeah, totally. I totally have not started projects because I wasn't sure that I had the skill base to bring them to the level I wanted to. In that case, one of the things that I do is I sit and I ponder the thing for the longest period of time. And I mean, for me as a skill collector, there's often this duality also of like, is this a project I'm going to learn this new skill on? And is it worth it? Like, am I going to go through what I need to go through on this to get this skill down? And will it bring me to a point of completion? If I'm uncertain, I wait. frankly, if I'm uncertain, I wait and I think about it and I keep thinking about it and I keep on pondering and I mull it over in my head and I make lists and I make notes and sometimes I make drawings. Usually for me, it is that. It is, am I going to learn this skill to do this project, or am I going to wheel in somebody else to help me with it? Right? Like rifling the barrel of my Samaritan. I was that was that was the last thing I did on the Samaritan pistol because it was the hardest problem to solve. The original maker had just taken a 9 flute reamer and pushed it through the barrel. And I was considering doing that. I was even considering having a reamer made. And then Victor Broadley presented me with the beautiful solution I ended up using. And that's a great example of me reaching outside my own sphere to ask for help to complete something. I'm not sure that was exactly the answer you were looking for, but it's a good question. Do you ever get Vicky Bly? Hi, Vicky Bly. Do you ever get creator's block, like writers get writer's block? How would you suggest overcoming it? I clean the shop. That's what I do when I can't figure out what to make or how to proceed. I clean the shop, or I choose a shelf and I fix it. Every shelf needs work. Every shelf everywhere needs work, needs your attention. Every shelf needs attention. Just choose one and start tackling it. Mary Karr, the memoirist who wrote Liars Club and I think Lit, I think that's her other one. Liars Club is one of my favorite books. And Mary Karr taught writing memoir before she actually wrote her memoir. And one of the things that she gets this question a lot about writing, what do you do when you can't write? And she says, I copy writers who I love in longhand. She says, my fidelity as a writer is to sit at the desk and to write. It doesn't have to be my own words. And she found a long time ago that copying out the words of writers she loved put those words in her body in a way that felt similar to the act of writing and greased those wheels. I think that's a great analogy. I do think that like when you have that kind of I'm seeing a connection here. When you have that kind of blockage that feels like you don't know what direction to move in, my advice is move in any direction. Stationary is the wrong move. I think this applies to relationships too, man. When you're stagnated, remaining stagnated is not the solution. You've got to push things in some direction. I talked about this in painting a few weeks ago during one of the live streams. I talked about not being able to, I had this hand sculpture and I couldn't figure out what color it should be. And in the exercise of sitting there for days staring at it and having nothing appeal to me, nothing flash. And I'm running through every color and every kind of thing I can think of. I'm looking at all this inspirational material and none of it's lightened some part of my brain up. So then I thought, I don't know anything about this. That's what I thought. I don't know anything about this piece. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's not exactly true. Let me ask some questions I might know the answer to. What color shouldn't it be? Oh, I shouldn't be candy striped. It shouldn't be red and white candy striped all the way up. That flashed right away. As soon as I asked that question, that image flashed. And I was like, okay, done. We're going to paint a candy stripe. I'm going to paint it the wrong color to try and learn from the fact that I know that's the wrong color is information. I'm going to pick at that and tease it and see what I learn. And so I meticulously masked this thing for 6 hours. Brooklyn, 1988. It's 6 hours. Oh, no. It wasn't 1988. It was 91. 91 over on Baker Street in my loft. And I masked it and painted it for 6 hours. And it was a horror show. It looked ridiculous. It was awful. And the second I saw it, I understood what color it should be. So what I do when I don't know what to build in here is I organize, I sweep up, I clean, I tackle a shelf. And it usually does, it might not make me want to build that day, but absolutely the next day I come in, the shop feels like there's more of a flow going on. I've removed something from my task list and I've refined something and it feels a little bit better. It feels a little more like a little more as possible. That's my technique, and I've been doing a lot of it lately. I mean, the when this space gets real messy, I get more and more kind of depressed about it because it just feels like this mountain of stuff to deal with. Um, so cleaning to me is a really important part of getting past that kind of blockage. Let's see here. My gosh, there's so many great questions here. I'm gonna continue to answer some of these offline as separate videos because there's so many great things to talk about. Lee Marsh wants to know, did I suffer any embarrassing failures at ILM? Well, thank you, Lee, for asking me to relive that moment. Yeah, I endured a really crappy one. There's a scene in episode 2 when Obi-Wan and Anakin go into the bar. And I think it's the bar where they chase Zam Weasel in there. I can't quite remember. Anyway, the entrance to that bar in the film, it's CG. In reality, I made a model, but I built it wrong. Yeah. I didn't just mess up the scale because it would have still been shootable if I had mixed up the scale. I mixed up one part of the scale. So it was literally like it literally couldn't match the CG set extension that I was making the model to be part of. And that was one of my biggest screw ups. My supervisor was like, dude, you are killing me. I am bidding against CG all the time here in the model shop, and you just handed them a fix. Like they now get to take our screw up, which is yours, and they get to succeed at it, and it's bragging rights, and it just limits the amount of jobs we can get here. You really, really screwed up. That sucked. Yeah, that straight up sucked. That was not a pleasant week. That was not a good one. But the other thing I love about the film industry in particular is that your results may vary, but in my experience of the film industry, there's very little grudge holding. And I like it about that. One of my earliest jobs in film was I was working on a commercial in New York, and I was driving the rental van, and we all met at like 6 a.m. at this coffee shop, and then we split up and went to the set in all of our vehicles. And I had driven the rental van to the coffee shop, but I hadn't driven it away. And somehow I had left the coffee shop with the keys to that van in my pocket. I got all the way to Jersey to the location, and the rental van was back in New York. And a producer had been like working for an hour and a half to figure out who had the damn keys to this dumb truck. And when it turned out I had them, he was like, "You screwed up." And then he turned to my supervisor and said, "You screwed up. All right, let's get to work." And then we never dealt with it again. Like, just clean. There's not enough time. No, don't get me wrong. I am sure that many of you have horrendous stories about really crappy supervisors and coworkers that held grudges for years. And I know that that kind of stuff happens. In my experience, by and large, on the wide scope of the film industry in LA and San Francisco, that is not endemic. But again, I am me. I'm a white dude. My experience of the world is different than many other people's. So again, your results may vary. I just want to accommodate for that.